Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. I am Humaira Khurshied, your instructor for Introduction to Linguistics. Today we are going to discuss our next topic, that is artificial languages. Yes, the first question that comes to our mind is, what is an artificial language? Yes, an artificial language is the language that has been consciously devised by human beings. Mostly, it is created or devised by a single person or a group of persons. Such languages are also called planned languages, constructed languages, or invented languages. Certain specific types of artificial languages may also be called fictional languages, auxiliary languages, or interlanguages. Let's have a look in detail what all of these terms stand for and what purpose they serve and what was the motive behind the creation of all these categories, which are comprehensively termed as artificial language. First of all, let's have a look at the history of artificial languages. Although most artificial languages were created in last 150 years and many in last 25 years, the idea of designing a language, rather designing an artificial language, goes back at least several centuries. Some early attempts at language creation include the lingua ignota by Hildegard of Bingen 1098 to 1179 and Belibelan, possibly designed in the 16th century. As far as the recent history of artificial languages is considered, more artificial languages were created in the 19th century than in the previous centuries, but even more artificial languages appeared in the 20th century, created for a variety of purposes, and a large number have already been designed in the 21st century. The internet has proven to be a popular means of disseminating information about artificial languages, and when one might think that this has encouraged the creation of more artificial languages in recent decades. What roles or functions are played by artificial languages? Yes, the most common and envisaged function for artificial language was to serve the purpose of international communication, and that is as an international auxiliary language, or informally called auxlang. This was the motivation behind the creation of Esperanto and of Volapük. It should perhaps be emphasized that the vast majority of such languages were meant to be second languages, and they are not the native language of any speaker. Yes, another purpose or function of artificial languages that has been found was to serve the fictional purpose. Fictional languages have been created in connection with a work of fiction or a series of fictional works. The best known of these languages are Klingon, which was developed by the linguist Mark Okrand, Newspeak from George Orwell's novel 1984, and the languages created by J.R. Tolkien for his Middle Earth books. An early fictional language is Utopian, made from Thomas More's 1516 book Utopia. Other fairly well known recent languages of this type are Dothraki from the Song of Ice and Fire series of books and television version Games of Thrones. Ladan from the Native Tongue series of books, Navi from the movie Avatar, and Solion from the role playing game Empire of the Battle of Throne. As far as the traditional classification of artificial languages is concerned, artificial languages have been classified in two specific ways. And first category belongs to those artificial languages which are created mainly by taking material from one or more natural source languages. And they are called posteriori languages, which again include well-known language such as Esperanto, while the other category belongs to those languages that do not use any natural language as their source, and these are termed as priori languages. Between these two extremes are the mixed languages, which have large amount of both a priori and posteriori language sources. As far as different types or kinds of artificial languages are concerned, following main types have been recognized. The first category is the regularized or standard literary language as distinguished from dialects. Yes, a clear example can be the standard English. The standard English is a specified variety of language that is being used in the educated institutions of England at the news media like BBC, and it is represented in the spoken form as RP or received pronunciation. Second type or the category is the ethnic language, and such sort of ethnic languages are highly regularized to maintain them as particular stage of development, since they are growing to be endangered languages. The example of these languages are Sanskrit, which is being preserved at a specific stage of development, Church Latin, which is again being preserved and having a growing danger of being decayed with the passage of time. And as far as the some modern languages, they are modern Hebrew, which is being preserved with great caution in order to preserve with the national integrity or national symbolism, Bhasa in Indonesia and Landsmal. And third category or kind of such artificial languages is consciously created languages to facilitate international communication. That is planned variety. Esperanto is one of them. The fourth type of such artificial languages is the non-redundant formulaic or symbolic category, that is created in order to facilitate some scientific knowledge. The sign language that is associated with algebra is a clear example of this kind. And fifth one is the programming language. It can be any programming language that is used in computers. Python is one of them. And sixth one is the machine language. For example, the machine language that is being used for the purpose of translation is considered to be a variant of artificial language variety. Now let's have a look at the properties of artificial language as compared to the features or characteristics of natural languages. Yes, the first very clear feature of artificial languages is that they are very different from natural languages. Natural languages exist in real world in flesh and blood communities of language users. The grammar of a natural language, like English, is incredibly complex. We discover the grammar of natural language through empirical investigation. On the other hand, the grammar of artificial languages is simple. We don't discover the grammar of an artificial language, we rather stipulate it, or we can say we prepare or make it We define it however we want to define. The properties of artificial languages are mathematically stipulated. These languages exist as mathematical abstractions. Metaphysically, they have more in common with computer code than real world spoken languages. We can say that artificial languages are simplified models or simplified forms of natural languages. English has conjunction, disjunction, and conditionals. And all of these grammatical categories are modeled in artificial languages by certain set patterns. John and Mary went to store expresses an English language conjunction. Mary will walk the dog if John agrees to make her dinner. Expresses an English language conditional, but the semantics of natural language is often so complex and varied that it is not always clear how the words and or if then are actually being used or what semantic or syntactic rules they are actually following. Is the and functioning as a logical conjunction or some other kind of conjunction? What do we even mean by a logical conjunction? Any given formal language or artificial language is designed to represent or model the logical behavior of selected few natural language words. When we use it, we abstract away from all other features of natural language sentences. Yes, we devise certain symbols to model such sort of logical connections or relations. Symbolical representation of items. So, what we do is to create an artificial language or stipulate or manipulate a syntax or semantics for the logical connectives and or if then or so on other connectives. That is why it's helpful to have a separate formalism for distinguishing the logical connectives of an artificial language from natural language expressions. They remind us that A and its connection with B, the logical connection of PL is not identified to the English language conjunctions. PL here stands for programming language that is used in computer. A and inclusion with B, the logical conjunction of programming language is not identical to the English language disjunction. And similarly, the logical conditional of programming language is not identical with the English language conditional. The logical connectives are formal abstractions defined by mathematical rules. The English language connectives are part of the real world of semantically complex linguistic practices deployed by real world language users trying to communicate with one another. On the other hand, programming language is as different from natural language as a system of differential equations is from the real world system that the equations are designed to model. And the last domain in which natural languages widely differ from artificial languages is the expressive capacity. The expressive capacity of natural language for far outstrips what any artificial language can represent. Think of natural language by analogy with functioning human brain. It's incredibly complex. It doesn't all sorts of things that we can describe and catalog, but our understanding of how it does these things is very incomplete. Artificial language, though, serves expressive purpose but in limited domain as compared to the above vast panorama accomplished by natural language. Yes, students, now come for the activity. You have to define certain terms, and that these terms are artlang, oxlang, and conlang. They are quite related to the material that has been given in today's lecture, and even the meaning of some of these terms have been suggested in the lecture. Secondly, you have to deduce any 5 features or characteristics of artificial languages from today's lecture. And yes, these features are stated in the last section of the lecture. And finally, you have to name any 5 artificial language varieties along with their functions. You may go to net or some other source to find these names. You may get help from your material in the lecture. And a very important thing is that the book that is prescribed for you to work in the class doesn't has this topic, so you can take the help from the lecture from or from any other source if you don't find the material in your text. Okay, it's over from for today's lecture.